The Lord does not manufacture a new system of yoga. Sometimes it is claimed that someone has become an incarnation of God and is expounding a new theological aspect of the absolute truth. But here we find that although Kapila Muni is the Lord himself and is capable of manufacturing a new doctrine for his mother, he nevertheless says, "I shall just explain the ancient system which I once explained to the great sages, because they were also anxious to hear about it." When we have a super excellent process already present in Vedic scriptures, there is no need to concoct a new system to mislead the innocent public. At present, it has become a fashion to reject the standard system and present something bogus in the name of a newly invented process of yoga. So this chapter, entitled The Glories of Devotional Service, we see Mother Devahuti seeking knowledge, seeking instruction of what is devotional service from his son, Lord Kapila. Lord Kapila is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is present here to instruct his mother on the science of devotional service. And in this chapter, he instructs, the chapter is entitled The Glories of Devotional Service. So here, it is mentioned that Lord Kapila is telling her mother, although she is his mother has taken the position of a disciple, and the mother is ready to take instructions from her own son, because he is not an ordinary son, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So she is ready to accept instructions from him. And here it is mentioned, Lord Kapila is saying that I am going to explain to you this ancient yoga system, which I explained formally to the other great sages. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is writing that the Lord is explaining the same old ancient yoga system which has been existing since time immemorial, which was given by the Lord himself. And he is not inventing a new system. In the material world, it is very common that if you seek any knowledge or any information, especially about yoga, they all come up with newer and newer methods of what is yoga. But here, the Lord himself, although the Lord is capable of inventing a new system, even the Lord is not inventing a new system, because Lord can do anything. He can instantly create a new system and preach it and it will become successful. So when Lord himself is not inventing a new system, even he is sticking on to the ancient yoga system, then what to speak of? How can we claim to invent and create new methods of knowledge and instruct that in the name of spirituality, which is what is happening in the world today. When Prabhupada went to the West, this is what was happening. Many yoga gurus or so-called modern saints had come over from India, and they would explain that you pay me this much money and I will give you a system. They would press the nose or do something like that, and some realization about God will come in. And that is what Prabhupada is referring to in this verse, that when we already have a super excellent process present in the Vedic scriptures, there is no need to concoct a new system, because this will only mislead the innocent public. So this is the Vedic process, that spiritual knowledge means it is already existing and it has to be received from an authority. This is what we call as the descending process. And the ascending process is inventing newer and newer system, and we know enough what are the flaws of inventing a new system, because the new system is coming out of our own senses, and the senses have their own defects, and that knowledge is not perfect. Prabhupada gives an example, just like when you want to know who your mother is, who your father is, you just have to ask your mother. That is the descending process. Immediately you come to know about your father. Otherwise, there's no way by which you can know about who your father is. So this ancient yoga system, even in Bhagavad Gita, we see Krishna telling the same thing to Arjuna as Lord Kapila is telling to Mother Devahuti in this verse. What did Lord Krishna say? Sa evayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratanaha. Yoga prokta puratanaha. Puratanaha means the ancient yoga system. Proktaha. I am going to tell you, my dear Arjuna, the yoga puratanaha, that ancient yoga system. And why am I going to tell you? Because you are my devotee and my great friend. And that is why you will be able to understand this yoga system nicely. So, Vedic knowledge is already existing and we have to learn to simply accept it. Prabhupada, there are many examples that we generally give, just like why we have to just accept Vedic knowledge if somebody asks us. The example that is given, that suppose you have an electronic instrument and you want to use it. You don't know how to use it because that instrument is a very complicated instrument with so many buttons. So the only way to use the electronic equipment properly or the electronic instrument properly is to refer to a manual which has been given by the manufacturer. We have no other option because the manufacturer in the manual has given all proper instructions how to make use of that electronic equipment. If we reject that and we try to create our own manual, can we create our own manual? We cannot create our own manual. We land into trouble. Because the manufacturer knows how this electronic equipment has to be run, what is the actual process, how to make the best use out of it. We have to refer to the manual. We will never question, why should I refer to this manual to understand how this equipment will run? We never question because we know that he is the authorized bona fide person, the authority. Manufacturer is the authority. In the same way, when it comes to leading our lives, we are all Mamaivamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. We are all part and parcels of the Supreme Lord. And the Lord has sent us into this material world to fulfill our desires, and He has sent us along with the manuals. And that is the Yoga Prokta Puratana, the ancient yoga system. All that is mentioned in the manual. We simply have to follow those instructions and we can lead a wonderful life. In the manuals, all kinds of instructions are given. How to operate this equipment, properly. How if you operate like this, you land into troubles. In the same way, Krishna has given us all the do's and don'ts in this human form of life. If we do like this, we will be able to run a very nice life. We will be able to have a very nice life. If we do like this, if we do like this, which is not supposed to be done, then we'll land up into suffering. We'll land up into miseries. So sometimes we'll land up into miseries and some suffering, and then we question God. My God, why have you given us this suffering? God said, I told you in the manual that you are not supposed to be doing this, but you have not referred to the manual. And that's why we have landed up into sufferings. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying in the 16th chapter about this very same thing, how we must refer to the instructions given in the scriptures. Krishna is saying, Yah Shastra Vidhim Utsirjya Vartate Kama Karataha. Yah Shastra Vidhim. Vidhim means rules. The rules that has been mentioned in the Shastra, Utsrijya, if you reject them, if you do not follow them. And then what do you follow? Vartate, what do you follow? Kama Karataha. Simply some whims and fancies that is coming out of our own mental concoction, out of our own lust and things like that. If you do that, then what will happen? Na sa siddhim avapnoti, na sukham, na param gatim. What is the goal in life? The goal in life is to be happy, is to attain perfection, right? That is all what we are striving for. That is our aim in life. Krishna is clearly declaring in the Bhagavad Gita that if you do not follow the rules and regulations mentioned in the scriptures and follow something out of your own whims and fancies, then nasa siddhim, you will not achieve perfection. Na sukham, you will not attain happiness. na param gatim, you will not attain the ultimate goal of life. No happiness, no liberation, no ultimate goal of life, if we discard the scriptural injunctions. And then in the next verse he says, so what will happen if we follow the scriptural injunctions? Tasma shastram pramanam te. One should therefore understand what is duty, what is not duty, by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. So if we want to elevate ourselves, if we want to progress in this human body, in this human form of life, we want to progress towards spirituality, we simply have to follow the scriptures. All instructions are there intact, and we needn't worry about anything else. So here, Lord Kapila is further saying to his mother that I am going to instruct you this yoga prokta puratanaha. And he says that in this verse, here Prabhupada writes in the purport that one qualification that Mother Devahuti has is she is very anxious to hear. He tells his mother, I shall just explain the ancient yoga system, because Mother Devahuti, if you remember, in one of the previous verses, she said, I am sick and tired and disgusted with this material existence. These were the three words Prabhupada used to explain one particular Sanskrit shloka. I am sick of this material existence, I am tired of this material existence, and I am disgusted. So she is very eagerly waiting, she is hankering for Lord Kapila to talk about devotional service, and she is eagerly waiting to hear it. And Prabhupada writes here that Kapila explained, he says, I shall just explain the ancient system which I once explained to great sages, because they were also anxious to hear about it. So this point of the qualification necessary to receive Vedic instructions. And Prabhupada writes, the first qualification is that the hearer should be very inquisitive, should be very anxious to hear instructions from the Vedic scriptures. That is a very important qualification. Now, we are not very anxious to receive instructions from the Vedic literatures. Why? Because we have not developed an attachment for them. We have not developed a relationship with God, with Krishna. Early morning, in the material world, even when we were outside, we are very anxious we are just waiting when the newspaper will come. And very anxiously waiting. And we can't start our day without a newspaper. It's something odd if a newspaper doesn't come on our table and then we don't read it. Why is that? Because we have developed attachment for these material things. So we are eager. Now as devotees, we have no attachment for these newspapers and all, right? Because somehow we have gotten detached from them. A little bit is okay for some service, but otherwise not. So we have to cultivate our attachment for hearing. That anxious hearing eagerly. Right now we are not able to hear. Now the point that is being discussed here is that we have to hear eagerly. So how do we come from the platform of no attachment, no taste from hearing, to hearing anxiously, hearing eagerly, hearing attentively? How do we come from this platform to that platform? Here, in one verse, Prabhupada is mentioning, this is the verse which Parikshit Maharaj is telling Shukadev Goswami, and then Prabhupada writes one important line. So this verse says, Tasmat, Shukadev Goswami is instructing about the science of Krishna consciousness to Parikshit Maharaj, and then he says, Tasmat sarvatmana rajan harihi sarvatra sarvada. Very important instruction. Tasmat, therefore, sarvatmana rajan harihi sarvatra sarvada. Three words are being used. Sarvatmana, sarvatra, sarvada. And what you should be doing? Shrotavyaha. You should be hearing. So now who should be hearing and how he should be hearing is mentioned here. The first thing, Sarvatmana. Parishit Maharaj is being told, everybody, Atmanaha means spirit, soul, human being it's referring to. Sarvatmanaha means all human beings must be Shrotavyaha, they must be hearing. Now, how he must be hearing? It is said, Sarvatra and Sarvada. Sarvatra means everywhere he should be hearing about Krishna consciousness. And Sarvada means always we must be hearing about Krishna. So all living entity, all human beings, always, everywhere should be hearing about Krishna. We have developed an attachment for material subject matter because practically we see outside world, always, everywhere, people are hearing about material subject matters. Outside they go for office, it's all about material subject matter. When they come at no KC means everything is material. And that's why we have developed attachment for them. Because always, everywhere, everyone is hearing about them. So the same thing, always, everywhere, all of us must be hearing about Krishna. Then it is possible to develop that taste, that attachment for Krishna. And Prabhupada writes here that, so in the purport he writes, out of all the 9 different methods, the first one, namely hearing, is the most important function in the process of bhakti yoga. The most important function in the process of bhakti yoga is hearing. And then he writes that Sarvatmana, that always, he writes here, without hearing sufficiently and properly, no one can make progress by any method of practice. So 2 things, without hearing sufficiently and without hearing properly. So if you want to hear properly, that means if you want to develop that, that anxiousness to hear, that eagerness to hear, Prabhupada is pointing out, and this verse is pointing out, we have to hear sufficiently. Unless and until we hear sufficiently about Krishna Katha, that anxiousness to hear, that eagerness to hear will not come about. This is the important point. It's very important that we develop this thing in us, this qualification in us that, I'm very eager to hear. We should be longing, we should be waiting for that day that when will I be very eager to hear Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, or for that matter, any topics of Krishna. Is that eagerness? Am I so eager to hear Krishna? If yes, if the answer is yes, then that means we are making progress in Krishna consciousness. If I'm having some taste to hear, I'm seeing that I'm developing some eagerness. But if that eagerness is not coming in, if that taste is not coming in, then there is something that we need to reflect and we need to hear more and more. Sarvada, always, and sufficiently it has to be heard. So the important point that comes out is we have to basically give more time in hearing Krishna Katha. That is important. And in today's world, people have no time, they have not. And when you give more time, you develop a relationship with Krishna, and then Krishna Katha will also be very happy, very tasty, very, very nice, very attractive, and then automatically we'll get attracted, and then we'll hanker to hear more and more. We know that story of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, where one politician asked him, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was publishing, this is about 100 years back, he was publishing, or not even 100 years, approximately 100 years back, he was publishing one newspaper, Nadia Prakash, and that was a daily newspaper, all about Krishna. So the politician asked him, you can publish a daily newspaper of Krishna consciousness? You have so much subject matter. That politician thought that daily newspapers are only meant for political news and some material news. He couldn't realize that there could be so much spiritual news. So then Bhaktisiddhanta explained to him that how he can publish a daily newspaper. He explained that now you have one city, Calcutta city, you have 2-3 newspapers. And there are so many cities in India. You will have so many newspapers all across India. And then India is just one country. You have so many countries. So you have so many newspapers every day being published from the small planet Earth. So many newspapers. And this small planet Earth is just one small speck of dust in this, in this universe. And like this, there are many, many millions of universes. So you can imagine in these many millions of universes which have millions and billions of planets, how many newspapers must be getting published for all the material news. Maybe about, billions of newspapers must be getting published. And this entire material creation is just 1/4 of the actual spiritual world. Spiritual world is 3/4. Spiritual world is ekapada, tripada. Spiritual world is 3 times the material world. And this Nadya Prakash, which is just one daily newspaper, is the message from the spiritual world, which is 3 times the material world. So if in material world you can have millions of newspapers, I can produce not just one newspaper every day, I can produce a minute edition. Every minute, one newspaper. In one more place, Prabhupada says, not a minute edition, I can produce a second edition. Every second we can be producing one newspaper. So much information we have of the spiritual world. But the problem is, people are not eager to hear. So if we produce also, who will hear? So it is very important that we are very conscious of this and that we are always thinking. Prabhupada has left behind so many books with him. For what? For all of us to hear. If you calculate, every day we must be here reading 1 hour. That is what the minimum that Prabhupada recommended. If we read also every day 1 hour, it will take us to read all the books of Srila Prabhupada. It will take us probably, once, maybe 1 cycle or 2 cycle or something like that is what we'll be able to cover. So we have enough subject matter. We have been blessed with so much of interesting nectarian topics about Krishna, and we should always be hankering about increasing our taste for hearing. And hearing means what? Prabhupada in one more place he explains that hearing means you should act. That hearing should react in our heart. That is the meaning of reading attentively and anxiously, being anxious to hear. Just like a stone, suppose a stone is here, the style, the stone. That is also hearing. Whatever we are talking, this is also hearing. But there is no reaction in the stone. It remains a stone. But when we hear, there should be a change in the heart. Meaning, when we hear, we must act also according to the instructions that we hear or we receive. Then, that hearing will be very effective. And then when we hear from a bona fide spiritual master, then it is, we always have to hear from a bona fide spiritual master, then that hearing is very, very important, and that when we hear from him, it will immediately change the heart. So the heart change, if it is required, we have to hear from a speaker who is qualified to give proper instructions, and then we must act according to his instructions for our consciousness to be uplifted. Prabhupada gave an example of how hearing is so powerful. He said, now suppose you have got a glass of milk. Now if you see the milk, you will see it is white in color. If you taste it, you can taste it is sweet in nature. If you touch it, you will feel it is liquid, it is cold. If you smell it, you can smell some aromatic flavor is there. But if you just hear, this is milk. That's all. You don't have to do anything else. No seeing, touching, tasting, nothing. Just by hearing this is milk, you will immediately know, oh, this is milk. That means it must be white in color. That means it must have this flavor. That means it will be sweet. That means it will be liquid. All this information immediately you get just by hearing this is milk. And if as long as you don't hear it is milk, all other different process, you'll get some information here and there. So hearing is more powerful than seeing or any other senses. Especially in spiritual life, if we want to see God, We can't see God with our blunt senses. We can see God by hearing about God. So, when it comes to spiritual realization or spiritual knowledge, hearing is more powerful than seeing. We all know 5,000 years back when Krishna was there, so many people saw Krishna. The whole world practically saw Krishna. But how many of them actually realized or understood that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? They were just seeing Krishna. Except for the 5 Pandavas and few other devotees, none of them knew that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only few handful of them, 5,000 years back. And today, 5,000 years later, we are not seeing Krishna physically. Of course, Krishna is there as a deity, but we are not seeing Krishna in his original spiritual form. We are only hearing about Krishna from the Bhagavad Gita, from Srila Prabhupada, from Bhagavatam. And so many of us are coming to this realization of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 5,000 years back, none of them knew, although they saw. 5,000 years later, so many of us are knowing without seeing, simply by hearing. So hearing is always very, very powerful. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, when he would lecture, Prabhupada would be very eager to hear whatever he was saying. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati noted that this devotee, Srila Prabhupada, is very eager to hear my messages. That was a special blessing of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And that was the time when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati actually chose Srila Prabhupada to be his, special chosen disciple. We all know how Srila Prabhupada would always be waiting eagerly, when is my Guru Maharaj going to give a talk, so that I will wait and hear him. Prabhupada was very interested and very much anxious to hear him. How important hearing is for the conditioned soul, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally demonstrated. In that pastime of Keshav Kashmiri, when Keshav Kashmiri was challenged by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about who is a greater scholar, myself, Keshav Kashmiri, or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Keshav Kashmiri started off the competition by composing 100 verses on Mother Ganges. We all know that story. Simply, instantly he composed 100 verses, complex Sanskrit shlokas with a lot of grammatical, ornamentation and things like that. And then after composing these 100 verses, he told Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, now you judge, how is my composition? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he pointed out what? 5, defects and 5 gunas. Dosha and guna. Dosha is the defect and guna is the other qualities. Now how did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu of course is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he knows everything, but we must remember that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came down as devotee incarnation to show how a devotee should practice spiritual life, right? So he had taken the role of a devotee, explaining to us practically how Krishna consciousness has to be practiced. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pointed out how he tells Keshav Kashmiri, how did I figure out your the good things in your composition and the bad things in your composition? How did I figure out? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying, Nahi padi alankara. This alankara means the art of literary embellishment, or how to decorate, with nice grammar, with some metaphor, with some simile. He says, I did not go and study all these things. Nahi padi alankara. Then how did he come to know about this? Kariyachi Shravana. He simply heard about all these things from higher circles. Kariyachi Shravana. Tate ei shloka dekhi bahu dosha guna. So because I heard about all this grammar and this art of literal ornamentation from higher circles, that is why I am able to point out your dosha, your defects, and the guna, the good qualities in your verses. So you see the importance of hearing. In Bhagavatam, in another place, what is the result of anxious hearing, of careful, attentive hearing, is mentioned here. Sa shraddadhanasya vivardhamana. Shraddadhanasya means one who is anxious to hear. One who is anxious to hear. What is the result? of anxious hearing, samasta dukkhapyayam ashu dhatte. Samasta dukkhapayam. Samasta dukkha means all miseries. Simply by shraddadhanasya, by anxious hearing, all miseries, samasta dukkha apyayam. Apyayam means they will be vanquished. They will be removed. Now how much time it will take to get it removed? Lot of time. Samasta dukkha apyayam ashu dhatte. Ashu means without delay. Immediately, instantly. Dhatte means one who executes this. So if we are anxiously hearing about Krishna, if we are attentively hearing about Krishna, Bhagavatam is mentioning that very quickly, immediately, asu, instantly, all the misgivings in the heart, all our difficulties, all our disturbances, all miseries, samasta dukkha, everything will disappear very quickly. So this is the advantage of hearing Krishna Katha very attentively. And Prabhupada, I'll just end with this one. Prabhupada is writing in one place that the eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification of a devotee to be eligible, for a devotee to be eligible to enter the kingdom of God. So goal in life is what? To go back to Godhead. And Prabhupada is saying that the eagerness to hear about God, he's not just talking about hearing about God. Yes, hearing about God is important. And by hearing only we will develop that. But he specifically points out the eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification to become eligible to enter the kingdom of God. We will end here. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanand.